Hello and welcome to our first video on Habakkuk. Habakkuk, one of the minor prophets, a short and 3-chapter book in the Old Testament, but I think we'll find it an exciting text to study. We're going to study it over 4 weeks, and we're doing this in September. So this is September in Habakkuk. We've divided the book into 4 weeks. And the passages sort of get longer as we go on. So this week we're on verses 1 to 11 of chapter 1, and then we'll do the rest of chapter 1 and just into chapter 2 in week 2. Week 3 we're on the rest of chapter 2, and then week 4 we're into chapter 3. And so this is Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 1 through and to the end of verse 11. And it's a passage in which Habakkuk brings his first complaint to God, and then God responds to that. And so his first complaint is verses 1 to 4, and then verses 5 to 11 are the Lord responding to Habakkuk's complaint. It's a passage that raises, and the whole book raises all sorts of questions. Here, Habakkuk starts straight in with asking, why does evil seem to go unpunished? Why does God not, and secondly, why does God not respond to his prayer? So he is stirred up by things that are going wrong in his society, and why, as so often we ask, why do the evil people seem to get away with it? And then that second question of why does God not respond to his prayer and the prayer of others? And it seems almost as if the prophet is accusing God of condoning cruelty and violence. Of course, there's the question of do cruelty and violence exist? And if they do exist, whose fault is that? Is it God's fault that they exist? And as they do exist, is he wrong in allowing these to exist? Shouldn't he just snuff them out and sort it all out? So he feels that the law is paralyzed and justice is perverted. These are strong words he uses, and he's calling out to God with these strong words. And I think as we go through this and as we hear the words of Habakkuk, perhaps we reflect on our own prayer life and ask the question of whether our prayers are a bit namby-pamby, a bit wishy-washy. Here's Habakkuk really striking out to God. And then, so that's verses 2, verse 1 is just introduction, verses 2, 3, and 4. And then starting at verse 5, we have God responding to Habakkuk's first complaint. And he basically gives an incredible description of the Babylonians. The description is full and detailed. The speed with which the Babylonians conquered their enemies has become proverbial, and we have got rich descriptive language which is used to describe them. But in verse 5 it says, "Look at the nations and watch, and be utterly amazed, for I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told." And so Habakkuk has brought his complaint, and God says, just hang on in there. Something is going to happen. I am going to act. And the way I'm going to respond to your prayers, the way I'm going to deal with this cruelty and violence involves the activity of the Babylonians. Doesn't say what's going to happen, but lays it all out for Habakkuk just how scary these Babylonians are. And so it seems to me that there are all sorts of questions raised by this complaint and by God's response. There's the question about the role of prayer, of calling out to the Lord, and how much we should be involved in that, and how strong and focused our prayers should be. What should we bring to the Lord in prayer? There's the question of our sensitivity to corruption in society and culture. We have different views, and I think sometimes we're concerned now about how we express ourselves and what it is we say. How sensitive are we to the moral standards, to the integrity of our leaders, and so on? when things go wrong, there's the question of who is responsible. Is God responsible, or are people responsible? If God is responsible, then we should ask him and expect him to be involved and respond. There's the question of prayer and the effectiveness of prayer. Does our prayer move God to action, or perhaps shape how he acts, how God acts and what God does? Then I guess that there are all the questions about perception, about human perception and divine perception. So how we see things. We see things from here, from ground level, and God presumably sees things from a different perspective. How do these differ? Habakkuk is saying, this is what's going on. These are the dreadful things that are happening. This is what I'm seeing and experiencing. This is what I know. But God is saying, hang on in there. I see things from a different perspective. And that leads us on to timing, to God's timing. We tend not to be awfully patient. When things are wrong, we want them sorted out, and we want them sorted out here and now. We want them sorted out pretty quickly. But often when we read scripture, God's timing seems to be quite different from ours. And so there's the whole question of God's timing and the whole issue of eternity and the fact that God lives outside time. But why would God delay? Why wouldn't he act now? Why would he hold back? And of course, there's also the question of the Lord using foreign pagan powers to achieve his plans. We're quite strong on the fact that God would use his people, that he would use us, he'd use believers to achieve his purposes. But we read a number of times in scripture of God using pagan powers, other nations, to achieve his purposes. And here God seems to be saying, I'm going to act, I'm going to deal with my people, and I'm going to use foreigners to deal with my people. So there are important things for us to explore here in these verses, but also as we work through the rest of the prophecy of Habakkuk. As we've done previously with books, I've got 3 questions that I encourage us to share during the week and to feedback. You can share anything you would like to share on the email and round robin that goes out each day. But my 3 questions for today are, first of all, about your sensitivity to the moral level of society. Are you sensitive to the morals of society? What part does the believer play in maintaining high standards and our standards falling? So a question around our standards. Secondly, about how we bring these to God, and that basic question, is this the kind of issue that we should be talking to God about? Should our prayer life include content like verses 2 to 4? So is this something that should be central to our prayer lives? And if it is, if it should be and it isn't, how do we move to a place where our prayers are reflecting and mirroring the kind of prayers that Habakkuk is bringing? And then thirdly, verses 5 to 11 seem to show the Lord just biding his time until the right moment before releasing the dreadful Babylonian hordes against the people of God. Do you feel that this is a realistic scenario? How do you perceive the ebb and flow of nations and cultures in the time of Habakkuk, but throughout history and in our time? How do you feel that balance, and is God involved in that ebb and flow and in raising up nations against other nations, perhaps as rewards and perhaps as punishment? So quite a lot there. If you signed up, then you will receive an email every day throughout September, or certainly up until about the 25th, I think, of September, through the system that we have set up. And this will include a daily meditation, and will also, there'll be a couple of inputs each week from 2 of our team. And then there's the opportunity for you to share what you feel, what you think, what you reflect, and to ask questions. And the idea being that we'll go on this journey together, and that we will have an interesting and stimulating conversation, and that through all of this, we will all come closer to each other and closer to the Lord. And so I wish you a great time with Habakkuk. Someone asked me today, is it Habakkuk or Habakkuk? And I said I was going to check up, and I haven't. I say Habakkuk, but maybe you say Habakkuk, and we'll not start talking about potatoes. I wish you every blessing.